Welcome back to the JMach Podcast, where we are combating veteran suicide one story, one conversation at a time. And I'm your host, JMach. Remember, your mental health matters and you're not alone. Don't hesitate to reach out and pick up your phone and call your friends or family, or head over to jmachpodcast.org to stay connected and get on our social medias. Now enjoy the show. This episode of the JMach Podcast is brought to you by Total Roofing and Construction, your trusted experts for quality roofing, construction, and home projects that last. Proudly supporting veterans, first responders, and their community. Big thanks to Total Roofing and Construction for making this episode happen. JMach family, today I'd like to introduce Kevin Sartor, U.S. Army veteran and Army National Guard veteran, Arizona native, and current mayor of the city of Surprise. Good enough?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
No, that was good.
I've been struggling getting his last name correct. All right.
Everybody,
curve for all of us.
Everybody does.
All right, Mr. Mayor, before we begin, I would like to introduce or present you with a hat. This is from Through the Storm Apparel. They are a veteran-owned, gritty, active lifestyle brand on a mission to end veteran suicide. We all face storms, and Through the Storm empowers us to push through while giving back to nonprofits that save lives.
That's awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Of course. Wouldn't have missed it. You know, you're a local. Let me set that over there. Local to Surprise.
Absolutely.
Right? Where do we meet? The
Mayor's Roundtable.
The Veterans Roundtable.
The Veterans Roundtable.
And you said, hey, I got this podcast. I'm like, I got to get on it. I've been in office since January, so I'm glad we could finally make it happen because I think what you're doing is incredible.
I appreciate that. And it's the most record time for a government official to get back to me on the podcast.
Is that right?
I appreciate that.
It's a win.
Absolutely.
It's a win.
So how have you been doing since the Veterans Roundtable?
I'm good. Yeah, things are good. It's busy, but I'm loving it.
Okay. How are you actually doing? Not that mayor soundbite.
Yeah. You know, it's you go through life and, you know, we'll go into my history, but I think living a purposeful life is what really kind of drives me. And I get up every day just thankful that I can really to be the mayor of the city. We have a great city, 170,000 residents, and just to be the one guy that gets to be the mayor and represent us is just a huge honor. And I get up just driven and have 100% passion about it, and I love it.
Absolutely. I can't wait to dive in because I love that you're a veteran yourself because Surprise alone is a huge veteran populace. So I can't wait to hear about everything you're doing.
For sure.
So let's just jump right into it, being that you're an Arizona native. What was your childhood like?
You know, it was, I would say, probably a pretty normal childhood. I mean, there were some ups and downs for sure, but, you know, I grew up in North Phoenix. Parents got divorced around third grade and just went to Barry Goldwater High School, graduated in 2002, and yeah, I would say pretty normal for the most part.
What do you remember about your parents separating at that age?
What I remember, I don't know. I think not every, but you know, there was fighting for sure. But you know, just I think some resilience. I built some resilience in me to have to, because I switched schools. I went from like a K8, you know, elementary school with like 100 kids in my class to Deer Valley Middle School with like 1,000 kids. So just a lot of change, but you know, we made it through.
Yeah. What helped you get through that at that age?
I don't know if there's any one thing in particular that helped me get through it. I know I stayed connected with my friends from my old school, made some new friends. So I think just staying connected with people.
What would Kevin, the mayor of Surprise, talk to little Kevin and say during that time frame?
Oh, little Kev, huh? Just don't give up. Just keep going. I wasn't the best high school student, but you know, and I think if you were to talk to my high school teachers, like there's no way Kevin's the mayor of Surprise. But you know, it's you don't have to let anything in your past define who you are today, and you know, you just have to, if you want to go after something, you know, just focus and put your effort and energy into it. And you'll be good.
A huge part of that is choice, right? Like every day we have the choice of being who we were yesterday or growing from that.
For sure.
It's just we got to get out of that victim mindset and recognize it is our choice, no matter how our circumstances may feel like it's holding us back.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. You know, it's like I could have gotten, you know, in my feelings about my parents getting divorced or whatever else may have happened in my childhood, but you know, it's just you just got to keep driving on.
So, what kind of student were you in high school?
You know, I was not the best student. My freshman, sophomore year, I was in sports, kind of messed around, but then I got a job and kind of realized I got to really buckle down to make sure that I, you know, graduated on time. So my last couple of years, I was a little bit better of a student. But
what was your first job?
What? Well, that particular job, I worked at Walgreens, but I started off, my grandma used to clean houses, so I used to go help her. I'd vacuum the house while she was cleaning the rest of it. I got $5 a house. And my dad painted houses, so I went and helped him paint houses. I don't think I made much more, but still, just out there in the summertime helping him. And
man, outside in Arizona summer.
Oh, it was brutal. It was brutal. Yeah. So then got a job at Arby's for about, 3-6 months, and then I got a job at Walgreens, and it was right by my house and paid a little bit better. So
okay,
inside.
Oh, nice air conditioning.
Yeah, for sure.
So, what were any key indicators as a child that led you to joining the military? Did you know before high school you wanted to join the Army?
I don't think so. No, I mean, I have a long family tradition of serving. My dad served, my grandpa served. I think my mom's traced our lineage all the way back to the Civil War, and I didn't find that out until in the recent past. But my dad always talked about it. But I think for me, I always wanted to, do more. And I guess in my mind, it was like college is more. But yeah, then 9/11.
That's right. You were an officer, huh?
Well, I didn't start off as an officer. Okay. Started off enlisted, but yeah. So 9/11 happened when I was in high school. I was a senior, and I just remember our country coming together. Just that patriotism. And it's something that I never experienced before, and I just felt I feel like every generation has their fight, whether that's the war on terrorism in our generation or the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, the World War II, every generation has their fight. And I just felt like the war on terrorism was our fight, and it was time to step up.
So did you go right in from high school, or did you go to college first? I
did a semester at Glendale Community College, but I think anybody in the West Valley goes to GCC for at least one semester. But I did that, and then it just wasn't for me. And then like I said, 9/11 happened, and I just wanted to step up. So I joined. I left for basic training in January of 2003.
And how did you feel during that time, right? Because it was a huge event. You knew you were about to go to war, and you still chose to sign up.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, it's, a lot of family members didn't want me to go. I remember my sister, she's like, don't go, don't do it. But ultimately, I think it was, like I said, it was time to step up, and I did. So I think that drive to defend, America, defend our way of life was really what kind of set me in that path to do it.
And was the country still together a year after 9/11, the way that it was the following days?
I think so, from what I remember. Yeah, I mean, probably not as much, but still we were together. I mean, there was so much going on with, Saddam Hussein and weapons of mass destruction and all this stuff. But I mean, that's policy level, at the national level. But for me, it was just wanting to do my part for my country.
And how was the transition from GCU to basic training?
It was a bit of a transition, but I was a little bit older, but it was good. I mean, you go from, living your own life, being a high school kid, and all of a sudden you're living in a barracks with 60 other dudes, and, we're all combat arms and just, doing that whole thing. But it was good. I feel like it was something that I belonged to.
It's awesome. I joined later in life too, but I was 23 when I finally joined. Yeah. Were you like 19?
Yeah, 19, 20. And I think, I was a drill sergeant for a little bit too in the Army. And I think you see those older people that come in that, have a little bit of a life experience. They just take it a little bit different, a little more serious, as opposed to like a 17-year-old kid coming in, they don't really know what's going on. And then you have these, 20, 23-year-old people coming in and they're like, I'm driven, I'm going to knock this out.
I feel like I was treated differently. I still got it pushed in, still got
for sure.
IT'd, hazed, whatever you want to call it. Not hazed, properly trained, right?
Yeah.
But I definitely feel like I had a little bit more respect off the gate than I maybe should have.
No, absolutely. I think, and really, I don't know. I have all sorts of different views on drill sergeant. There's the Hollywood version, and we can get into it later. But the Hollywood version. But I think ultimately it's about teaching, mentoring, coaching young people, and it's a pretty cool thing to see somebody come in from the streets or from wherever they lived, and you have all these different people from all walks of life, and you have to kind of get them to go through that process of taking their values and the Army values and kind of integrating them and seeing them kind of just be successful.
Yeah, what made you want to become a drill instructor?
At that point I had deployed twice.
Okay.
And I was a staff sergeant when I came back from my second deployment, and the Army's like, hey, we need you to do something. So it was recruiting, observer controller, or drill sergeant. I had a first sergeant of my unit that at that time was a prior drill sergeant, and he was somebody I looked up to tremendously. And so he talked me into it. But I think it really fit my personality, not in the sense of being, a hard-nosed kind of guy like that, but just that, the teaching and mentoring part of it.
Yeah,
and,
being able to be a good mentor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would like to take it back a little bit and
Sure.
talk about
Yeah.
what was the first deployment for you? Like, we don't have to go into like the specifics, but like the mindset, the mentality of like when you first went there to who you were when you came back.
Yeah, it was a tough deployment for sure. We were, I was a forward observer, so I was, we had a platoon that was attached to the Brigade Reconnaissance Troop. So it was two platoons of scouts that had headquarters platoon, and then we were attached to that. So it was just a troop size element. It was really like that's as high as my unit went, and then we were attached to the brigade. So it was, it was tough. It was tough. We were, we had our platoon we trained with, but then we split up into different sections. We didn't really get a lot of time together when on missions. But yeah, it was a tough deployment. We lost a couple people. And I mean, it's one of those things where you do it, and you're in the moment. You're just focused on the task at hand. I don't think you're not thinking about, a year from now. You're thinking about like this next mission. Let me get through that, and I think that again, that brotherhood is kind of what gets you through it.
And when you came back from that, did you instantly notice that something was different with you, or do you feel like you maintained the same person?
I think it changes probably everybody, in one way or another. I mean, I think it was one of the reasons I met my wife when I came back, and I think everybody that knew me before, in my mind, I was like, well, they think I'm different, but she didn't know me before, so she only knew me as who I was after. So I think that's kind of how we hit it off, and she's an incredible woman. Still married, 20 years. I think through it all, I think we should have been a statistic by now. But
yeah, you're definitely a success story.
Yeah, a couple times over, but she's an incredible woman. So I think that was one of the reasons why we connected so well. But I think you go through that stuff. I don't think it's tough to go through. I think you go through a lot. As far as I think one of the hardest things. One of my friends was killed, and for some reason he's like, "Hey, I want you to do. If I die here, I want you to do my memorial service." And so I was a private. I mean, but this is the guy that like trained me from like my first unit assignment. He taught me how to like unfold an army cod, how to eat an MRE. So this guy was like a big brother to me. And so he had gotten killed. And I just remember just thinking about like having to stand up in front of like the entire brigade, the brigade commander, and just talking about him and what he meant. And it was certainly tough. But I think that was one of those defining moments where it's like, and I've thought this throughout my entire life. And you go through one hard thing, and you kind of lean on that for the next hard thing, the next hard thing. And so I really leaned on that a lot to have that that strength, I think, to get through it and do it for him, to respect him, to show him the honor. But it was in front of everybody. I was just private Sartor up there, speaking from my heart.
So you mean to lean on it for the next hard thing? So when the next hard thing happens, you look back and say, "I made it through this hard thing. I can tackle this one now."
Yeah, absolutely.
And were you able to decompress from that first deployment and losing your brother before you got into the second round, or even before you got out of the Army?
I don't know. I don't know if I ever decompressed from it. I don't know if anybody ever truly does. But what I do know is that, people come back and they're like, "Oh, I can't talk to people about it. They wouldn't understand." But my perspective was that unless I talk about it, people will never understand. So, I would talk to my friends, I would talk to my family, talk to other soldiers, and not just to tell war stories, but just to I think that helped me kind of just talk about it and get it out of my system. I think if you hold that stuff in, it really, really eats at you, and you can do a lot of negative things from that. And so for me, it was just sharing, and it's not, you sit down and it's just, in-depth, like deep conversation. I mean, sometimes for sure, but most of the time it's just, telling stories. And I think a lot of times in the Army, you have this dark humor. And so I think, especially with other soldiers, you kind of have that dark humor about it. But I think that kind of helped me decompress more than anything.
That's great that you were able to talk about it, because I feel like that's one thing, whether you've seen combat or not, when you leave active duty service, you lose that sense of group therapy every day.
Oh, for sure.
Because you're around the like-minded individuals with the dark humor. You don't have to worry about what you're going to say. I feel like we don't recognize how much we actually use that and benefit from
Absolutely.
That. Or at least I personally haven't.
No, I agree. I think in every position I was in, throughout the Army, whatever unit, you just find that connectedness with other people, because it's that shared service and sacrifice.
And then you went into your second deployment with a girlfriend this time?
Yeah, no, I was married.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a whirlwind of a relationship. Yeah, we got married in November of 2005, so it'll be 20 years this year. And then
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been I love it. I love her. I was just texting them the other day, like my family, like, hey, I just feel incredibly thankful for them and just their, of all the stuff I've been through and all the different things, like to have them as my family is pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that needs a book on its own, or like how to make it through your service with a relationship.
Well, I don't know if I'm the one to write a book, but I think just being upfront, my daughters, and just being honest with them.
Yeah, of
I
course.
think that's the only way to do it. But so I deployed. I was and got promoted to sergeant, a U5 sergeant, and I had a team. And so I think that was the biggest difference between that deployment, the first deployment and the second deployment, was just having soldiers. I mean, it just ramps up the intensity, I think, for me. And I look back to my team, my sergeant, that led me through that. And I just couldn't imagine, like, I had a year of, combat experience, and then I deployed with soldiers. I couldn't imagine having, joined the Army, gotten promoted to sergeant, and then deploying for the first time with soldiers. It took a lot of guts, a lot of those leaders. I mean, at every level, to lead soldiers through it. And I think we get over there to Iraq, and there's we can talk about policy and all that stuff. But I don't know if there was a clear hey, this is what we're doing in Iraq, and March of 2004. But either way, deploying with soldiers, and I had a couple of really good soldiers. They were, they're just good guys, and but yeah, it that added the stress to it for sure. To have their family there when we deployed, and I think the one of them, their wife was pregnant, and so making sure that he came home was just next level kind of tough.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only imagine going from being the private and getting deployed to now you're in charge of soldiers, and you have your own family at home now.
Yeah, that certainly has its challenges.
For sure. What would you say is the biggest challenge of being away from your family?
I think staying connected. Especially in a combat situation, because you're out there doing missions and, almost every single day doing that. And they're home living their lives, and it's the sound of freedom.
Yes,
That's
sir.
what I love about my office the most. So that the view and the sound of freedom, they fly right over us for the F-16s or the F-35s.
Actually, now it's my time to shout out Luke Air Force Base. We planned that flyby.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. I've used that before when I was like speaking outside and it flies by. I'm like, I wanted to make sure, but no, I appreciate it. So what were we talking about? The how to stay connected with the family.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so it's a challenge.
Was that even on your mind, though?
Staying connected
with your family versus, I feel like it had to be a tough balance of focusing on the mission and your soldiers as well as, okay, I got to make sure my family back home knows I'm safe and whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it was a tough balance for sure. But I mean, there was times, we did cycles of, patrols. So there would be times where, you'd be on patrol, you'd be out there doing your thing, or you'd be on a quick reaction force ready to go out, or you'd be down. And there was only a couple of times when we were truly down that we had to get spun back up to go do something. But, I think one of the things that my wife and I did is that we both took a journal. And so she would write in it every day. I would write in it every day. And then we ended up swapping when we got back, so we can kind of see how our year went.
Okay. That's a cool technique, because journaling is a huge modality for your mental health, a huge benefit for it.
It is.
So did you even think of it that way while you were over there? Or did you just think you were journaling so you keep your wife in the loop later on?
I don't think until later I realized what journaling is, how good it is for you. But I think I just did it. I think in the moment it would kind of help, I'd write stuff down, and it kind of help get some of that stuff off my mind. But yeah,
absolutely. And what was the homecoming like from your first deployment to this second one?
Like the difference?
Yes, sir.
Oh, well, my mom was there my first deployment. I think it was a surprise, if I can recall correctly. So that was pretty cool to see her. And then the second deployment, my wife was pregnant with my first daughter, and so to see her there and pregnant. My son was there. I have a stepson, great kid, young man now. He's 24, but he was there, and just it was just an incredible thing. Because you're over there and you're fighting for your battle buddy, you're fighting for the country, but you're also fighting to come back home. And so I like to see them there. It's a pretty moving thing.
Okay. And what came after your second deployment? Was that when you went to drill instructor?
It was, yeah. I got back in January of 2008. My daughter was born in February of 2008. and I was at the drill sergeant school by May of '08. So it was a real quick turnaround from like, being deployed and, hanging out with family and jumping right back into training.
Which was easier to manage your family while being a drill sergeant or while you were overseas?
Oh man. I don't know if you can really compare the two. I mean, because I think when you're overseas, and I talked to my firefighter and police friends about this, and I have a lot of respect for them because, they're here every day and they're in the moment, and they leave their house and they're in it. I think when you're a soldier, you deploy and you're there 24/7, 365. You're just in the moment. But I think as a drill sergeant, it was a little bit tougher because the hours were just pretty intense. I mean, getting up early and, going in and waking them up and training them all day and then putting them to bed. And I remember coming home sometimes just like dead tired and not even changing out of my uniform, just like sitting on the couch and just falling asleep and getting back up and just going. But
I could imagine those hours as a drill sergeant.
Yeah. But I think it was good in a way too, because it was like, you're so ramped up from deployment. It was a 15-month deployment. So you're just so like amped and going. I think it was a good thing to have a fast-paced job at that point.
Yes, kept you busy so you didn't have time to think about everything.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
I want to agree with you about police and firefighters. Like I actually opened up my podcast and everything I'm doing for not just veterans, but for police and firefighters as well. I feel like they're actively deployed in the streets that they have to live in
every day.
That separation, I wonder how that separation compares to being deployed, and then coming back home versus being deployed in your own streets.
Yeah, I tell my friends, like, I have so much respect for them to be able to do that. Because I mean, again, in the Army, you go and it's like, I've explained it to like new soldiers. It's like, they're like, how do you deploy? How do you do it? I'm like, well, you go through training, you go through your job training, your unit, your training. And it's almost like being on a sports team where you do all the preseason training and you want to jump in the game and get in the game. And so I think in the military, you deploy, you're in the game, you're doing it. Like that's your Super Bowl, so to speak. But I think for police and fire, they got to turn that on every day. And it's just, I have a ton of respect for them to do that because it's not,
absolutely,
couldn't imagine how hard that has to be for them.
Absolutely. And then you got to see the people you locked up or you saved every day because we're in the same community most of the time.
We are, yeah.
So tell me, what came next after drill instructor?
So drill sergeant was because I know you're in the Marines. In the Army, we call him drill sergeant. That's okay. It was, so I did about a year and a half as a regular drill sergeant. And then the United States Army Drill Sergeant School had reached out and they said, hey, we need some drill sergeant instructors. So I applied, got selected. So I went from training, the brand new soldiers to training essentially my peers. And it was a pretty neat experience. I think that's where I really learned. The commandant of the drill sergeant school, Teresa King, another great leader. I feel like I have great leaders throughout my entire career, but she was a great leader. And just the level of professionalism at that organization was something I'd never seen before. And so that really kind of taught me about, I want to say the political side of it, but I mean, we're talking, the chief of staff of the Army's coming in and talk to us, and there's a lot of people that our eyes are on that, drill sergeant school, because it consolidated from a couple different right into one school in Fort Jackson when I was there. So it was pretty cool to see that transition. But so I did drill sergeant and then drill sergeant instructor. And when I was there, because we trained sergeants from all over the country but then we're also training some National Guard guys. So these guys would come in with like these patches I'd never seen before. They had a recruiting like badge. I'm like, Sergeant, what the hell? Where are you from? Because you're used to seeing the active component, like division badge, patches. And so they explained it to me that the National Guard had recruiters that would become drill sergeants that would then train the people that they recruited to go into, basically it's the same like red, white, blue phase of basic training, and so they come in and learn how to train, and then they go back to their state and train their folks. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. So I actually came home on leave from being a drill sergeant, and my wife had to get her ring inspected, and right next door was a guard recruiting storefront. So I went and talked to him. I said, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'd like to do. I'd like to come back home and serve. And so they gave me the number to the sergeant major. I called him, and he's like, hey, we'd love to have you. But I had to go through the process. So it was a couple years still that I had to, apply and get on the order of merit. So I ended up, ETSing out of the Army or getting out of the Army, and then the very next day joining the National Guard, and then thankfully having an active, guard job as a recruiter. So I did, went from and it was the craziest thing to go from a drill sergeant leader, at the drill sergeant school, everything's dress right dress, everything's super intense, to being a recruiter on the streets, like back in my hometown. So quite the pendulum swing for sure.
Absolutely, I could imagine.
Yeah, so that was an adjustment. I think it was a good adjustment, to go from, because all the guard guys are great. I mean, it's, and you're the active Army, the guard guys are there, whatever. But, to actually see those guys at work and what they do, they're impressive people to work with, because they have their civilian job, and then they come in and drill, and having to balance all that. It was something pretty cool to see. So came in as a recruiter. And when I left the Army, I was telling the commandant that my goal is to become an AGR officer in Arizona. And she's like, drill sergeant, you'll never be able to do it. You got too much Army to go guard. And I was like, well, Sergeant Major, that's my goal. So within about a year and a half, that whole time I was a drill sergeant, I was working on my degree. So I got my degree, finished it when I was just right out of the Army. I applied for OCS. So I ended up getting selected for OCS. And every year, the Arizona National Guard selects one enlisted AGR soldier to go AGR officer. So I just happened to be the lucky guy that got it. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I have a question though, but being a drill sergeant first, do you feel like that affected the quality of recruits that you were looking at? Or did you just go off of what the Army taught you on how to recruit?
That's a good question. I think it's different recruiting for the Guard, because you're going to serve with those guys again. Like there's guys that I recruited back in 2011, 2012. I still talk to him. One of them's a senior NCO, he's 7. I'm just super proud of that guy. He's got a family, lives out in Buckeye. Another guy's, he got commissioned. He went from enlisted, got commissioned. He just finished, I guess, aviation. He's an aviation officer now. So he just got back from Alabama after training for a year and a half. So you recruit people you want to serve with, because you're going to serve with them at some point. And so, I always put that in the back of my mind. Like if I don't want to lead these people, I guarantee you other NCOs or other officers aren't going to want to lead them. So I try to stay away from those guys. So
were there any recruits that you thought like, man, I don't want to lead this person, and then they shocked you, or vice versa?
Not that I can recall. I mean, there was a couple of times that, a soldier didn't want to ship to basic training. We'd talk to them about it. And, they come back and just super confident, and just, they made it through, and, like, oh, I appreciate you, talking to me and talk, instead of, because they wanted to quit. So just kind of pushing them, because I think everybody, can get through it. It's just having that mentality to, tell yourself that you can.
Yeah, and if you don't got that support system at home, it's going to make it even harder to want to leave.
It is. Yeah, it is.
And what was the transition from enlisted to officer like for you?
It was interesting, to go from being, a sergeant first class, drill sergeant, 2 deployments, to basically back at the bottom, second lieutenant. For the longest time, I didn't wear any of my badges, just because I didn't want, I wanted people to see me as, that officer, not that, gritty NCO that I was back in the day. But I eventually put them back on. But it was tough. It was tough to start back over, especially in a unit. I was never an engineer. I was a forward observer. So the Guard was like, hey, we'll commission you. We'll make you AGR, but you got to be an engineer officer. And I was like, I've never engineered anything in my life. But they put me out there. So I was stationed out in Florence with the engineer battalion, and a bunch of great guys. They really are. And that's where I took my first command, in the 259th. I have it hanging up back there, and just a bunch of really good guys. And it was an interesting transition, though, because you're going from being an expert, as an enlisted, NCO, to now starting over like in a whole new branch, a whole new everything. But it was good.
Are there warrant officers in the Army? Mm-hmm. Was that an option for you?
No. Mm-hmm. No. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, it never was. Okay. Not that I didn't. They're experts. They're like the subject matter expert, whatever branch they're in. But it's just not something that ever interests me.
And what was the difference from going to like a staff NCO to an officer?
In what regard?
As in like the day-to-day, in a sense.
It was different because I was the training officer, like the operations officer for the engineer battalion, and so I worked with 2 other guys, really great NCOs, and so we just basically made sure that all the training was ready, and make sure that ammo, all the training area, everything was set up to make sure that they were good. So it was good. So I did that Monday through Friday because I was AGR, and then my weekend I was a platoon leader for I was a Corey platoon. So of all the things, it was about a 40-man. our 40 soldier unit, and just a bunch of good guys.
And what was the change of pace from going to active duty reserve or National Guard?
National Guard. Yeah, I meant to say it was that that active guard is a tough life. I mean, there's days where you work, basically 12 days in a row because you work your Monday through Friday job, you go to drill and work it again. And I guess I say that, but all the guard, traditional guard people do the same thing. But yeah, it can be because everybody's looking at you. You're making sure that the unit is ready to go on a full-time basis. So you have out of a battalion of 300-400 people, there's maybe 20 that are running it, day to day. So there's a lot of work to do. I think some people could probably take it, not work as hard, but I think the ones that really cared really put all their effort in. That's what I try to do. I don't ever try to half step anything that I do. You're gonna, you sign up to do something and you go all out.
Absolutely. I'm just asking because I'm trying to learn your mental process, right? Did you have time to decompress and not understand what was happening to you due to your time on active duty? Or were you still just go, go, go? You didn't have that time?
Yeah, I think it's always been pretty, 100% go.
And I feel like I don't even know if there's much of a transition for you, because if I understand correctly, you got out of active, you retired, became mayor.
I retired in September of 2023. And then because I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that was as I was getting ready to retire from the Army National Guard, I started working on my master's degree in public administration. So I wanted to start putting that stuff to work, and so I did with planning and zoning. I got selected for that, and it was pretty cool to see how the city things are planned, how zoning works, all that stuff, just to get that experience. And then my last 90 days in the Army, I actually worked. I was in a fellowship for the city of Surprise. So I worked with the city manager. They had me do this pretty cool project where I'm, learning about all the different departments and projecting out, what the city needs as far as, people, equipment, and facilities between now and 2040. So that was a pretty cool thing. But yeah, so I did all that in 2023, and I got out of there. I had to resign my time on the P&Z to do the fellowship, and then I retired. So I wasn't on the P&Z. I wasn't in the Army. I had my master's, and I was like, well, if you do all this stuff to prepare for whatever the next step is, and I felt like, if I didn't put it to use, it would have been a waste of time and energy. So I started reaching out about potentially running for office, and so I did.
What made you want to run for office?
I think just that continued service. I think, I wanted to make sure that our city was represented by I think our city's younger now. I think we needed younger leadership. I think we needed kind of a fresh perspective and somebody that was doing it just to, serve and make sure that our city's headed in the right direction. That's really, for me, that's what it was all about, and just continuing to step up and serve. Because I've been serving at that point my entire life, from the Army, all those different things. And so I just wanted to keep serving. And I think it was a good extension of that. It's so weird to go from like serving in the military and defending freedom and deploying and all that to then, still, I think, defending freedom in a way and still serving and protecting the Constitution and, the American way of life through a mayorship. It's a pretty cool thing.
So is there any similarities from being an officer in the Army to being the mayor?
I think everything that I did in the Army kind of prepared me to be mayor. I don't think there's any, I don't think there's a playbook on how to be the mayor. I've never been a mayor, never been even held elected office before. But I think everything that I did up to that point kind of led me to that particular role. And I think it just, the way that it all worked out, I think it was just kind of meant to be. I think the deployments and just having that tenacity to get through it, that grit, that resiliency to get through it. I think the drill sergeant really kind of showed me that leadership side of it, of, how to lead a lot of people at one time. And I think the recruiting helped me get out of my shell from being, Army to, you have to be out there. You can't be so like hard-nosed, like, hey, this is the way the Army is. You had to be personable. So like that certainly helped. And then the officer report, just the planning, the preparing. I think the long-term, I think one of the things that I lean on the most, I think I did when I took over the 259th, these soldiers had been, going to annual training either in Florence or Flagstaff for like 10 years in a row. And I was like, man, these guys, we got to get them to do something, get them to like be passionate about something. So I ended up trying to get them to, I applied for it's called Innovative Readiness Training. So we applied for a mission to help extend a runway in Alaska, like remote Alaska, like Kodiak Island, Old Harbor. You couldn't even take a car there. You had to fly or take a boat from Kodiak to Old Harbor, but we ended up doing it for 100 days, and that was probably one of the coolest things I've ever done. I mean, it was a lot of work. It took a lot of work to get there, years of planning. I had to brief the Army general, so just that whole thing of just that planning was, I think, what kind of helped me here, because when I started here, it was about the strategic plans. I know, if you go in an organization and they don't have a strategic plan, or there's 7 of us on council, there's me and 6 council members, like we can have different opinions for sure. And we do. And we respect those different opinions, but we have to be on the same page as far as what we want to see our city become. And so that's through the strategic plan. So I think my experience in the Army in doing all that helped me really kind of drive that strategic plan and dig in. And I think a lot of times it's done and just kind of put on a shelf and we did it, check the box. But I want to make sure that and I appreciate the council members for really digging in and doing it. We had a lot of really good conversations and I think came up with a really, really good product.
That's amazing. So in your brief terms of transitioning out of the Army, what was that like for you?
It was tough. It was a tough thing. I would say that the transition was probably about a year. I started, I was assigned to like a public works equivalent. I was a business manager over there. And so it was mostly civilians. It was me and my boss were the only 2 people. She was a colonel, great lady. I respect her. Another great leader. I mean, I feel like I'm blessed with great leaders throughout my entire career, but she's another great leader. And so she kind of helped me with that transition, but it was all civilians. So I think that part kind of helped me transition as well. Doing something that I wasn't used to doing as a business manager. Never did that in the military before. And so I think that helped. And then just the transition process. When you go through like all the, required DOD transition stuff. And it's, I think a lot of it's check the box. And they talk about resumes, all that kind of stuff, but I don't know how beneficial it was. And really, I think looking back, I would tell myself to kind of to put things in perspective. Like, I was an officer, master's degree, whatever. I was thinking like, I'm gonna get out and make $150,000, $200,000 a year, and I did not end up making that. But that's okay. I think you have to be willing to, and not take a job that's not up to your what you think that you're able to do, but just I think it's okay to kind of take on a different role than what you expected to take on.
Absolutely. What surprised you most about the transition?
How hard it was to get a job.
Really?
Yeah, it was. I can't tell you how many jobs I applied for, and it was tough. And I was like, well, I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm doing the interviews. I have my resume. I felt like looked good. I had a couple of people look at it, and it's tough to get rejected. Especially after you have a pretty good career. And I hate to say it, but I just don't think a lot of civilian employers really know what kind of quality of person they're getting when they hire a veteran. And I think that's one of the hardest things to try to articulate, even for me, like, hey, this is what I can bring to your organization. I still had a challenge doing it.
And how do you feel that as mayor, you'd be able to change that or address those issues?
Yeah, that was one of the things, I ran on. It was, because there's a lot of reasons why I threw my hat in the ring to run for mayor, but I think one of them was veterans issues for sure. I just know that there's so much that we can do through the veteran roundtable. You're there. How do we work together to make it easier for veterans? I think one of the things that I worked through on this budget cycle was getting a full-time veteran navigator here in the city of Surprise. We've never had one before. We had one on, and she was a great lady, but we had one on like a grant. And so every couple of years they transition out. But I just know, like, as a veteran, if you build a relationship with somebody and you have that rapport, that person's in the community, they're going to all these different events, like, people start seeing them over and over and over again. And I think a lot of times veterans are a little bit hesitant to reach out for help. But if you like, well, I saw this person at this event and that event, like, they really care. And so I'm hoping that veteran navigator, and I haven't met the gentleman yet, but I heard we hired a pretty stellar person. But I hope that they can help build that in the city and build those connections with the businesses and build those, connections in the surrounding community and help really get, veterans to where they want to be through those connections.
I think one of the great things you do, or you're part of, I'm not sure if you started it or not, is I'm going to call it Veteran Village, but that's not what it's. Vet Fest. Sorry.
Vet Fest.
Were you in charge of that? Did you start that, or was it something Surprise already had going and you improved it?
Yeah, I was not a part of this.
Okay.
That's the coolest part about being mayor, man. We have so many good people in the city just doing incredible things. And so that came out of the Veterans and Disabilities Commission, as they wanted to do something for veterans. And I think, I think last year was the second annual, I believe. maybe third, but they did a heck of a job. And there's so many vendors out there and just so many people trying to help veterans. And it can be a challenge, I think, for a veteran. That was another thing. If we talk about transitioning, like you have all these different organizations like, hey, we'll help you do this, we'll help you do that. It's almost overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing I'm trying to help out with the podcast and the Sandbox. I'm trying to bring in all these great resources because, like you said, there's so many nonprofits and organizations out there that want to help you. But two main things is like, who do you trust?
Right.
And then how do you find them all? So I'm trying to become a collective place where each month at the Sandbox, I'm rotating in at least 8 different mental health resources from within our community.
That's awesome.
To help share and educate our community about who's out there, what they do, and how we can help.
And the Sandbox is once a month.
Once a month, 4th Thursday of every month.
That's awesome. I tried to make it out last one. I couldn't, but I want to. So I want to support because you're local to Surprise. And that's another reason why I wanted to do this podcast. It's just like what you're doing is impressive because it's not easy to put yourself out there. It's not easy to, make content, consistent content, and for you to do that for veterans is, it's a noble cause, man. And I appreciate you doing it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
When you came to the I think I gave you our time a couple of round tables like, hey man, let me get on your podcast. But I think anything we can do to support, anything that we can do to build our community, to build, veterans, absolutely. But there's so many different aspects of our community that we need to, we can pull people together and just work together and do it for the for our community, for people in our community.
I agree with that. And you said earlier that my brain's going blank for a second.
That's all right.
Oh, that employers do not understand the quality of people that they're getting from veterans. So that's what I'm trying to do with the podcast and the Sandbox is everything we do is for veterans and first responders, but it's open to the community to share that we have our struggles, but we're still out here getting after it and trying to make life better. So everything I'm doing is going to be led by veterans and first responders, but the community is going to be welcome as well. I feel like I'm so tired of being separated. Even when it comes in the mental health world about veterans, right? Everything I'm learning is like, oh, you'll be fine if you're around a group of veterans. Well, throw that out the window. My wife's not veterans. My kids aren't veterans. Like, I want to be able to go out in public and be able to be the best me without having to have a veteran next to me or with me.
I agree. And that's, again, that's one of the reasons why I ran. There's you can go through hard things in the military. You can go through deployments. You can have struggles, but at the end of the, you can still, through all of that, still, be engaged in your community. It doesn't have to be necessarily mayor. It doesn't have to be, a podcaster and all the stuff that you're doing, but you can still be engaged. And it's just, that's again, one of the reasons why I ran to I don't want to say show, but just to demonstrate, through action that, we can go through hard things and still succeed.
I think you're a great representation of that. Yeah. And I do like how you said that you're trying to bring in the younger style of veteran community out here, because since I've been here in 2017, I lived in Surprise on and off, but I'm a full-time resident again.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. But I noticed that it is more geared towards the older generation veterans, and that style no longer works for the GWAT era veterans. We don't want to go to a bar and be filled with smoke and half-true war stories, right? We'll never get rid of the half-true war stories. That's just in our blood and our nature, right? But we can start evolving and including the families, especially when it comes to mental health. It's not just the veteran that goes through it. Yeah, the veteran had the experiences, but now the family needs to understand how to work with that veteran to provide the best lifestyle for all parties involved. It takes the village, not just the one.
I agree. Yeah. And it's, 100% agree.
So with that said, what coping mechanisms or routines help you manage the stress, trauma, or setbacks?
Yeah, it's, I don't think that a routine is great. I think we're creatures of habit, and so when I'm in the routine, I'm doing it. It's I'm firing on all cylinders. But I don't think success is a straight line. There's times where it's you're up and then you're down, and you're up and you're down. But I think as long as you're continuing to make consistent effort. But for me, I think it's you get I worked out for 20 years, and so I took the last couple of years off. It's just, it was nice not to get up at 5 a.m. and go run. But what I realized quickly is that that working out and that running and that you're putting your body through stress is probably one of the best things that you can do for mental health. Because I remember still to this day that my drill sergeant back in 2003, every time we go for a run, he's like, "This is going to be the hardest thing you do all day." And so you put 100% effort into it. You get through that, you can get through anything in the day. In fact, my daughter's on cross country, and I tell her the same thing. She just started running, and I'm like, "This is the hardest thing you're gonna do all day. Just get through it, and you'll be okay." But so I think that And I think at the end of my run, I really like to, I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or just I like to do it, but I think the cool down part of it is really, I think, where I kind of find my center. And so I do a lot of breathing techniques where I'll breathe in like positive things and breathe out negative things. Like I'll breathe in peace or breathe out war in my mind. Like I'm breathing in good and just exhaling all the stress or exhaling all of the worry in my life. And so I think that kind of, do the stretches, and then I do some breathing stuff, and I guess you can call it meditation. But that's what really, I think, sets me up for success for the rest of the day, because I know that I've gone through the hardest thing I've gone through. I've kind of meditated on my day, and I just go and tackle it.
So just so I understand this correctly, after you've done running and you're stretching and cooling down, you're actively forcing yourself to think positivity as you're breathing in, and then you exhale all the hate, the anger, the frustration, and everything.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
I don't know. I guess I've tried to meditate before, but my mind's just racing, and I can't turn it off. And I don't know. Maybe I'm not good at it. But for me, instead of trying to sit there and focus, I gotta clear my mind. Let's put it to use. Let's put it to kind of some active meditation. And so it's a pretty cool thing. I like it.
Yeah, meditation is one thing I want to get into, but just like you, my brain just races and then squirrel. As soon as I get on track, okay, I'm meditating, and then all of a sudden something comes.
So I'll set my watch to 5 minutes every time. So it's I've only told one other person that. Well, my wife knows, but my best friend, and I told you on a podcast. But you know what? It's again,
breaking news.
Well, I don't know how breaking news it is, but I mean, to find your center, it's tough in this crazy world. I mean, especially with different hats, being mayor, being a husband, being a father, being I work over at JMach, and so there's a lot of things going on every day. And so I think to find that center is probably when I'm at my best.
So I want to talk about your marriage and the mindset that goes into that, right?
Yeah.
How do you go from being such a leader and you're going to do as I say because of my title to, well, now I'm a husband, now I'm a father. I can't lead that way for my kids.
No.
Or do you?
I felt like it was so cliche that, you're in the military, and I don't know, I don't want to say anything disparaging about people, but you can't come home and be like that. That's just not the way that the world works. It's not the way that families work, to come home and think that you can lead, your family the same way that you lead soldiers. But even in the same mindset, I don't think that you lead soldiers that way either. I think through my time in the military, it's, I think we call them baby drill sergeants. And so they start their time on the trail, and they're yelling, and they're, full of piss and vinegar, and they're going you got the hat, you're doing the Hollywood thing, but you learn really, really quickly that that's not how you lead people. And that's not what motivates people. You have to connect with them. You have to, mentor them, and you have to show them what it's like to be a soldier. And so even from that, I think I went in as a baby drill sergeant ready to go, but, I learned, and so I took that mentality and just kind of throughout my entire career. So to answer your question, no, I don't go home and act like that, but I don't think the Army's like that anymore either. Sometimes it's necessary, but not always.
I'm looking for help here, okay?
Sure.
I want to be the best husband and father I can be. You got 25 years under the belt this year. I want to
20, my friend.
20.
Well, we'll get to 25. I feel confident. We made it through all this.
I got the years and the year it is confused. Apologies.
No worries.
So how do you be the best father? How do you switch off your military experience, being the mayor, and go home to being dad or husband?
I think you have to find a spouse with a lot of patience. That's for sure. I don't know if I would be the one to write a book on how to have the best marriage, but I think being honest with each other and just being upfront. I've a lot of military friends that I have try to hide things from their wives, drinking or whatever it may be, and I just thankfully that my wife is just an amazing person that accepts me for who I am and doesn't judge me necessarily. So that I'm thankful for. But I think just having that understanding and just that shared commitment. Like I said, I mean, we've had our ups and downs for sure, but I think at the end of the day, it's about that commitment. And no matter what, we both came from, divorced families, and understand, and the family is great, and we have, we get together, all those things. But I've always wanted to just live, I guess, a normal. I don't want to say live a normal
family together, not have to
right?
Go through that. Divorce.
One of the things my sister told me, because she's older, when I was getting ready to go to high school, because she didn't graduate, and she's has a master's in nursing now, married to a doctor, so she's doing great. But she didn't graduate high school. My brother didn't graduate high school, and she's like, just enjoy life, live a normal life, enjoy high school, do the normal things, go to the dances, do the games, all that stuff. And so I've kind of kept that in the back of my mind and just kind of just try to have that normal. But I don't know, man, what's normal these days anyways? Everybody has their own thing. But for me, it's about having that core family. It's about, getting out of the Army, joining the National Guard, we've been in Surprise since 2011. My kids went to the same school, K-8, they're in the same high school, just to have that, that normalcy for them. Because I think it's important to have that core family, to have that, family unit together. And so regardless of what's going on in the world, regardless of, with my wife and I, like we always stuck true to that core value of this is our family. We're going to stick together. We're going to stick it out.
So how do you stay humble? Because that's what I'm getting at everything you just said is being humble, because you always reflect back and give the credit to your spouse. You reflect back and there's something else I wanted. What was it? But yeah, you're just being humble, because you say you're not one to write the book, but you are. You're the success story. You had a successful marriage, whether you had ups and downs throughout the Army, because everybody has, every relationship has its ups and downs, right?
Definitely.
But you managed to keep it together and then go officer, then get out and follow your plan of what you said. I met somebody a year ago that was talking to me about you, and you served with him. And he said, yeah, dude, he just told us one day that he's going to go be the mayor of Surprise, and he's the mayor of Surprise.
Yeah.
So you stayed the course.
Incredible. It's incredible. I was back. It was a struggle to run for mayor, right? I won't say it was, the campaign was tough, but there was a lot of conversation with my wife back and forth. And, I told my family, okay, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. And then I was kind of pulling back on it a little bit. My birthday's in January. My youngest daughter wrote me a card and, happy birthday. And she said, Mayor, surprise, Mayor Sartor 2020, what was it, 4? I was like, well, I can't not run, right? I mean, it's, and really it's, it's about serving my community, but also, showing my kids, or proving to my kids that you can do hard things. And if you put your mind to it, you're determined. And I mean, we built a coalition of residents, just great people that, I'd never ran up for office, but, just the first time I'm talking, and people were like, hey, yeah, I can get on board with that. And I don't think I was saying anything groundbreaking. I was just being me and saying, hey, give me an opportunity to do my best for our community. That's all, that's all I'm asking for. There's going to be, things that we have to do, in the community that people aren't going to like. And that's okay. We can't please 170,000 people at once, but we can do our absolute best to work together to try to do what's best for our community. But, yeah.
How do the politics of being an officer versus the politics of being a mayor differ and are similar?
That's a good question. I think politics are as nasty as people want to make them, but I think we just had to rise above it. I don't try to get into the cutthroat politics. That's what I love about local government, is that it's nonpartisan, and you can just be a leader. You can be an elected official. You don't have to be Republican or Democrat or wherever the case may be. But I think we try to rise above it here in Surprise. We have a great, council. We got 7 great people that are just. I think everybody's truly in it to do what's best for the community. And it's not a political thing. It's not, let me try to undercut you to try to make myself look better, which is, I think, a pretty rare thing. And I think it's something pretty special we have in Surprise right now. And I love to be a part of it. It's a pretty cool thing.
Absolutely. I just have one favor, that when you write your book in the next 3 to 5 years, I want to shout out just JMach.
Yeah, JMach.
Okay.
Maybe you'll be the catalyst for it all. But yeah, I don't know. I've read a book, but it's...
Did you ever think you were going to run for mayor?
Never.
Okay.
Never. Yeah, it wasn't even in the game plan at all, transition. It was just, never thought about it.
All right, I'm going to wrap this up here soon. Mayor, is there any saved rounds, anything I missed that you would like to discuss?
We talked a lot of good things, man. I don't know. No, I think if there's ultimately one thing to say, just, it's, we go back to that resiliency. And, if you can make it through one hard thing in your life, just look back at that. And then I don't know. Life is an amazing thing. And it's, you talk about humble and ego, there's no need for all that. There's no need to be like this, people just want to connect with people, and people, in my opinion. And it's just about, I don't want to be this altruistic person, but it's just about doing your best.
How do you check your ego?
I just try to get rid of it. I think between the experiences that I've had, it doesn't do good for anybody. It's not good for any organization that I've ever been in. And so you see people that are like that, and you're just I don't want I don't want any part of that, because you're not doing what's best for the organization or whatever you're a part of. Like, it's not about ego. It's about how do we work together and get something done. And if I can check all that at the door, like, please, I'm in it.
How can veterans and first responders plug into what you're building here in Surprise?
Yeah, I mean, we have the Veterans Roundtable. That's a lot of veteran service organizations that are there to help. We have the Veteran Navigator now, and really they just reach out to me. I mean, I got my email, mayor@surpriseaz.gov. I'm on LinkedIn. I mean, any. So I'm trying to be as accessible as I can and be as, that's what, coming on this podcast is just about, I mean, yeah, I had a little bit of reservation coming into it, just because, it's like you're putting yourself out there but ultimately it's about, you're out there doing your best. You're putting yourself out there. I'm like, well, as mayor, I have to do the same thing. But yeah, so they can connect however they want.
I appreciate that you're leading by example. So thank you.
Absolutely.
And final one, if you had one message to leave any veterans listening today, what would it be?
You're not in it alone. There's no need for veteran suicide. There's no need for a veteran to, think that they're in it alone. We have so many good people. You can reach out to anybody. And I know it's that connected service, and we may not have served in the same branch, but we're here for you. We're here for you. The City of Surprise, I'm here for you. Like, whatever you need to be successful, we're here to support you in that.
All right. Well, Mr. Mayor, I'm honored to be able to call you brother, and I just want to say thank you for coming on the podcast.
No, I appreciate it. I got you one of my coins too. Yes, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for everything you're doing.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.